Hi. Hi. This is Dr. Munsell on this very, very rainy Wednesday. I'm just now getting to the video because I had some other things I needed to take care of. But this should be the first video or recorded lecture of the third day, June 5th, 2013, 4:05 p.m. in the afternoon. I always say I'm going to try to be brief, but then I go crazy. But don't go crazy, because that actually, after the introductory slide, or title slide, that is the second slide. I've heard from several of you, and I know that this reading is hard. The authors use a lot of unnecessary, fancy language, and it is almost as if they do not want the reader to comprehend what they're trying to say. And so my job is to try to make it a little bit more easy to digest, or easier to digest. But don't fear. Don't go running for the hills. The chapters after this introductory chapter are they're easier to understand, I think, and they are a little bit more fun to read because they are actual case studies of places of public memory, or as this second section or final section that we're looking at in chapter or the introductory chapter calls these places memory places. And so so don't freak out. Don't go all is that Rick James? But don't do that. And then also just know that for this particular lecture, we're still moving, still on the road. We want to continue and with all the baggage that we have, the luggage that we have, that we've already discussed the previous days. But now we are adding the important idea of place to the ideas of rhetoric and memory. And so this email or this video, and thus this PowerPoint, really is concerned with the section that starts on page 22, rhetoric, memory, and place, through the rest of the introduction, which it goes all the way, I think, to page 34. So we're talking about 10 pages here. Okay, so that's sort of the brief preview of what I'm going to talk about. The next thing here, starting on page 22 and the third slide, there's a big discussion here about the relationship between place and space, and I go all crazy because I just saw Star Trek this past weekend, so I say place and space, the final frontier. These are the journeys of the starship Munsell, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And basically the idea here is that, yes, this is complicated stuff, and they make it more complicated than it needs to be, and they have that little silly sketch thing that, but basically they're saying that place is to space as memory is to time, which means, and then I have the next slide, this. In short, when you think of place, think of a real place, a physical, material place. That's all a place is. I am sitting here in my home office / living room. This is a place. But I'm also in this grand continuum of space, but place. So place is more sort of local. It has boundaries and everything like that, and space is all over the place. My wife just got here. I hope she does not interrupt my lecture. You think she will, Finnegan? Mindy's here, Finnegan. He gets very excited. So in other words, when we're thinking about place, in this particular class, and memory places, places of public memory, we are certainly thinking about space, but we're thinking about places. Fort Sumter is a place. The State House grounds, a place. Columbia College, a place. And so that's really the main thing that you need to understand about place versus space. And then they have this big thing, memory versus time, or not versus, that it's not in competition, but memory and time. The same general idea, I suppose. Memory is smaller, more local, whereas time is all over the place. We've got the past, the present, and the future. But memory, and thus places of memory, are contained. They have a border. And so memory places then are places that are local, have boundaries. You go to the State House grounds, you look at things, and then you leave. You were at a place, you were at a memory place, you perhaps thought about some things. Certainly it's going to be tied to all this other stuff, but we're interested in what happens sort of at those places, even though in this particular class we are dealing with virtual places, or I guess spaces. Okay, I'm doing a lecture. So, and sorry, I'm on the Star Trek kick. The next slide is something that's from the previous lecture, and you can just cut it. So we're going to delete that slide. That's awesome. Hold on, I deleted the wrong slide. Delete slide. Delete slide. Oh, I don't know. Delete slide, yes. Delete slide. Thank you. And so the next one is just being frustrated. Okay. And then the next slide, slide 7 it should be now, it says never mind the previous slide, which now, never mind the previous slides. Basically, one of the things that, again, I know that you're going through, and so am I, is that this stuff can be very, very difficult, and they try to make things that are not terribly difficult more difficult than it needs to be. And then you can just read the rest of that particular slide. I'm just trying to amuse myself. Okay, so the next stuff is actually starting on 8. Slide 8 is the most important stuff. And so basically after this whole sort of place versus space, or place in relationship to space, memory in relationship with time, they say that even though places of public memory, aka memory places, are obviously different. Disney World is quite different from south of the border, and you know, for sausage a place, but we can make some generalizations. So generalization number 1 about places of public memory, or aka also known as memory places. The places are special because they are self-nominated as special memory places, like a national monument. And folks or tourists often visit or travel there, so the place is sort of out of the ordinary. And also it tries to sort of say that it's authentic. In fact, I think the book actually says that folks trust these things about the past, or about you know, what it says about history, more so than professors. Lord forbid. So they're special. They are out of the ordinary, and people trust them, thinking that they are authentic. that they are offering the information, the best information, the real information about whatever it is that that particular memory place is trying to educate folks about. So again, Fort Sumter, it says, hey, I'm a national park. I'm here to teach you about these various things. Come here, travel here. It's out of the ordinary. And it's authentic information that you don't necessarily need to question. So that's the first sort of generalization. The second generalization is that they construct what our authors call preferred public identities, where there is some forging between the past with the present. When you see other, so when you go there, I mean, you are in the present, but you sort of feel a sense of the past. If you go, for instance, to Monticello, it's as if you are walking through, Jefferson's life, so to speak. But also you see other visitors there, so there's that shared sense of community there. But basically, the idea that the authors try to offer here is that memory places become lessons or offer models for present and future ways of being a community, whether that be an imagined sort of American community, a South Carolinian community, whatever. So the first thing, that these are special places. Second thing is that these places teach us what it means to be a community of people. The third generalization here, the next slide, is that even as these are special places that say, hey, come look at me, and I'm authentic, and this is what it means to be a community. Look at all the people around you taking pictures. But they're extraordinarily partial. That is, they're amazingly selective. The stuff that these places have to go through to exist is amazing. They have to be authorized. Folks donate money to this stuff and have to have their say. And there's thus tons of conflict over the results. I mean, think in terms of the changes that have been recently made to the MLK monument in D.C., if they've indeed made those changes. Remember the debate a few years ago about the Tillman statue on the State House grounds, where folks wanted to change what it actually said, where, blah, 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 Tillman did all these little things, and he was a racist. And so there's always conflict. So that's important. These places, even though they're special, and they give us a sense of shared community, they're amazingly selective. They're amazingly partial, and that's very, very important. The next generalization, number 4, because they are places, they are different, our authors say, than a lot of other rhetorical forms like speeches or something like that. They are very material, they are obviously physical, and where they are, it can be strategic. They're designed strategically. Think about the museum in D.C. and how it's structured, with the architecture and all that type of stuff, and whether you locate things in the hills or the inner city or wherever, all that stuff is selective and strategic. And so, unlike speeches or movies or whatever, they say that places of public memory or memory places are particularly interesting because of the idea of it being a place. The fifth assumption here, the fifth generalizations that we can make about these memory places. Memory places are, it's a little typo, but multimodal. That means simply there's lots of different channels there. There are brochures that you can see, there are little videos that you can see, you can touch stuff. They have little stones that you can touch at the African American Monument. You can buy, postcards. You can get, as I said previously, hats. I'm a big fan of hats. And so basically it just means that these memory places uses lots of channels of communication to offer these messages, whatever messages you think they're offering. And then the final generalization here is that